Bob,
Yes.
that actually brings up a question in terms of, because Orientalism is a culture trying to represent another culture without necessarily even understanding knowing how to speak their language, living there for long periods of time, so that they have really anything other to offer besides the kind of looking through their own perspective at a different culture and then saying that they know what the other culture is about. I'm curious if before Gutenberg, this kind of natural curiosity of human beings to maybe look at whatever, say, like in the places in the world where there was a lot of trade, where there were rivers and there were other cultural contacts happening, what type of assumptions were they making, when they were in contact with other people? I mean, I think, is it a natural kind of aspect of the mind to kind of box in or try to understand another culture through the lens of their own perspective? So, you know what I mean? How could you do anything else? It would be very difficult. Am I being clear?
Yes. Okay. First, I'd like to clear one thing up, is that the Orientalists claim to understand and speak the language of the people that they are studying even better than the people that are speaking their own language.
Okay. That's pretty disturbing.
And if you would like me to give you an example of that, there was an English gentleman by the name of Kellogg, who was assigned by the Church of England, or one of the Christian missionary organizations, in 1840 to write a grammar of the Hindi language, a language that didn't even really exist until he finished writing that grammar. So it took him 39 years to write that grammar, and what he did was he spent that time comparing the 7 major languages of North India, and he took the most common grammatical forms and the most common vocabulary, and he wrote this book called The Grammar of the Hindi Language. And this is basically what established what is called now modern spoken Hindi. Now, even being a Christian missionary and indoctrinated in the way of the church and the colonial power, he had his doubts in the preface that he wrote to his book in 1879. And he suddenly had a doubt whether or not what he had done was cool. Is this something that is really sort of correct? So what we have is more than one culture reflecting on another culture. When Napoleon conquered Egypt, when was that? Does somebody know when that was? Somewhere around 1815, 1812, 1815, 1809. He had his expedition to Egypt. What was, huh? Did you say something, Kailash?
No, I did not.
Oh, I'm sorry. When he made this expedition, this military expedition to Egypt, it was the very first time that in history that the expedition consisted of, besides the cannons and the artillery and the cavalry and so forth, besides all that, it consisted of botanists and biologists and linguists and anthropologists and archaeologists and musicians, and in other words, he sent with the soldiers the academy, so that the academy could study and know Egyptian culture in this new post-Enlightenment rational way. And remember, you see, what's happened here in this Enlightenment period is we had the initial explosion of science, of Galileo, of measuring the speed of gravity and doing empirical experiments where the theory would be worked out with rationality and then measured against our sense experience. Right, and this is the basis of the new physical science that comes out of the Enlightenment. But they went a step further, and they said that if these are the rational and thus correct, proven experiences that we have with physical science, we can apply these very same principles to the human sciences. So not only can we measure gravity, but we can also measure economics. We could measure language. We could measure culture. We could measure intellect. We could measure all these various human attributes and put them on this giant map of the world that we are creating. And why are we ultimately creating this? I mean, what does it mean to map and represent the world and all the knowledge of the world? Is it gives us control over that world. And so when Napoleon sent the entire French Academy down to Egypt with the soldiers, it wasn't because he was only curious. He had true power and true colonial control in mind, and he was not alone in that enterprise. That enterprise became shared by the British and to a much lesser extent the Spanish and the Portuguese, because this is more the post-Enlightenment colonial thrust on the world. But it taught us to control other cultures, to be true colonial rulers, because we controlled the knowledge. We represented the knowledge that people would have of themselves.